53.
Caught me by surprise, Concordia. Thank you. Really, I suppose it's the same question again, Minister, to ask you what plans do you have in place to manage the increased flow of Ukrainian refugees? And you did say to me in your response there that the message will go out to the Ukrainian communities across Europe. But I suppose what I'm asking is, what is that message? What are we now saying? Are you in a position to tell us here this evening, or is government still deciding on what that message will be?
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
Well, Deputy, until such time as Cabinet agree a particular policy, I'm not in a position to I suppose, either go into detail or to talk to the message, because I think that would only cause confusion. But I think maybe this question is a good opportunity, because we do continue to accommodate Ukrainians. We do continue to accommodate international protection applicants. We accommodate Ukrainians, as you know, primarily through serviced accommodation, through the modular accommodation that we spoke to a few moments ago. We've also been undertaking a programme of refurbishment of existing buildings and using them. We've also used the pledged accommodation and the vacant home scheme, pledged accommodation through Irish Red Cross, the vacant home scheme through local authorities. 14,000 people are accommodated through that combined scheme. That's a very significant. It's almost 20% of Ukrainians are accommodated through that scheme. I know there was a lot of criticism at the start. It was slow to take off, but it has really delivered. And just acknowledge the work that the Red Cross has done and local authorities has done in terms of implementing that particular scheme. And I think those elements will be important in terms of giving people options, and we have to acknowledge some hotels will leave accommodation as their contracts run out, and those other alternatives will give people means of accommodating themselves in a more independent fashion. In terms of international protection, again, real pressures exist there. We would have had a dialogue in terms of proposals in Sligo earlier this year, and I've always been very clear in my view that, as well, and looking to move beyond the reliance solely on the private sector, that the state has to actually invest in more state-owned accommodation for international protection applicants, because I think we have to understand that Ireland, like every other European country, is going to be seeing higher levels of migration in the decade to come.
Marian Harkin.
I hear what you're saying, Minister, about the state investing, but you and I both know that takes time. You won't be the Minister when a lot of this will come on stream, or it's unlikely you will be. So it's going to take quite a bit of time. So I suppose in the meantime, the question is, what can we do? The elastic is well stretched at this stage. And one of the things that perhaps occurred to me was that the payment to people to have a Ukrainian family or one or two members of the Ukrainian community in their homes is €800, I think, per month. Is there any possibility that the government would look at perhaps increasing that payment, just especially with the cost of living, to make it a slight little bit more attractive for people who would like to do it, but who are genuinely concerned about the cost and that they won't be able to afford to do it? Would that be an option that you might consider in the short term?
Minister.
Thanks very much, Deputy. In terms of the rate of the payment, it's €800, it's tax-free, and it doesn't interfere with any other benefits or allowances or social welfare benefits an individual might receive. We just have to be careful in terms of interference with the private rental market, interference with HAP, interference with other areas, and I think we feel that 800 is probably the right area where we are right now. It has supported its take-up in a very significant manner. It is a significant amount, and as I say, it is tax-free, and again, we don't want to take a measure that interferes with the private rental market. In terms of the provision of more state-owned accommodation, you are right, that does take time, but in terms of the pilot we did, the OPW modular pilot that we were speaking about a few moments ago, that has demonstrated that good quality in-scale accommodation can be built swiftly. I know, again, there's been criticism over that, but, from concept to people living in those homes, from this not being a type of accommodation that existed to people living in homes, took less than a year all in. And I don't know any housing development in our country that has been developed as quickly.
I congratulate you on the speed at which this has happened, but it's a tiny amount for what's needed. We know that. And that's why I was putting forward that suggestion. And perhaps I'm talking more about the case for people in their own private homes to take in Ukrainians, rather than people who might be letting their home or letting an apartment. I understand that you don't want to interfere with the private rental market, and that's important. But it's just that we're not just at a pinch point, Minister, we're way, way beyond it. And it's to look for temporary solutions, whether it's that or something else, I don't know. But we do need to find them, because you did mention hotels earlier. In the part of the country that I come from, tourism is on the floor. The Minister, Catherine Martin, has pretty much accepted this. In counties like Leitrim and Sligo, so much of the hotel accommodation is now being used for Ukrainians. It's at crisis point and can't take any more, Minister.
If you'd conclude, please.
Well, Deputy, it is in acknowledgement of the real pressures that are on the system that we are in government undertaking a review of the offering towards Ukrainians right now, and will be bringing forward a change. We recognise there's pressures there. It's pressures because what we are experiencing is unprecedented, a war on the European continent, some of us never thought we'd see in our lifetime. It is unprecedented in the scale of people fleeing Ukraine and entering the European Union, fleeing for their lives in many situations. And that response has necessitated unprecedented responses all over Europe, including here in Ireland, where we have done a lot as a government, but particularly as local communities in places like Leitrim, like Sligo, where so much has been done. So we're looking at the offering, but we are continuing to bring on additional streams of accommodation, be it through modular, be it through refurbished, and we will look at other options as well, both for accommodating Ukrainians, but also international protection applicants.
Question 50.